Hello everyone and welcome back to Rebooted MCU. Today we are here with Rebooted MCU Phase 4 Part 10, the finale of Phase 4. Before we get started, I want to remind you all to like, comment, subscribe, and feel free to join the Discord and follow the Instagram page in the description below. Now, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get to the final part of Rebooted MCU Phase 4. The 10th part of Rebooted MCU Phase 4 is X-Men Origins. The movie opens up as we see a press conference taking place in front of the White House. We see United States President Thaddeus Ross, played by Harrison Ford, standing at a podium talking. He says, "We are all aware of the concerning events that have taken place since the so-called Golden Awakening occurred months ago. President O'Brien was killed. A monster savagely attacked Washington. And a masked man attacked the entirety of New York using a neurotoxin that caused innocent people to suffer. The kicker is that the man responsible for this attack claimed he had an individual impacted by the Golden Awakening working for him to help with this heartless attack on our country. This leads me to the only logical conclusion. These so-called mutants are the cause of the recent string of violent events. That is why today I'm encouraging Congress to pass the Mutant Registration Act, requiring all mutants to self-identify and disclose their information to the government. This is not about targeting these individuals, it's a matter of public safety." We cut to the X-Mansion as we see Professor Charles Xavier, played by Giancarlo Esposito, sitting in front of the television watching the broadcast. He mutters to himself, "Humans will blame that which they don't understand on those whom they don't understand. Such fickle creatures we are." We watch as Charles closes his eyes and telepathically says, "Hank, gather the recruits. Daily training starts now." We watch as Charles wheels away as a title card appears and the X-Men theme begins to play. We cut inside a newly constructed training facility in the X-Mansion. We see Hank McCoy, played by John Boyega, in a new training uniform, who says, "They're coming, sir." "Good. Thank you, Hank," says Xavier, as we watch a young man run into the room and begin cheering. "Professor Xavier, does this mean that we're finally going to get to go on our first actual mission?" "Not necessarily, Bobby, but I appreciate your enthusiasm as always." The young man is revealed to be Bobby Drake, a young mutant who has given himself the name Iceman, played by Asher Angel. He watches a slightly older man walks into the room. He scoffs. "Professor Xavier, no offense, but this bright yellow clashes with my eyes. I can't wear this outside of this facility." "Mr. Worthington, as much as I know you care about appearances, I find it quite ridiculous that you would potentially let the color of our uniform prevent you from representing mutant kind." The man is revealed to be Warren Worthington III, aka the Angel, played by Brandon Perea, who chuckles at Xavier's comment. Suddenly, the door to the facility opens up for the final time, and in walks a man wearing an interesting pair of shades who says, "Enough chit-chat, team. It's time to get to work." "Ah, yes. I knew I was correct about your natural leadership ability, Mr. Summers." The man is revealed to be Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, played by Joseph Quinn. McCoy turns to Scott and says, "Has my new visor design worked properly? I was able to find some rare ruby quartz crystals that should theoretically..." Yeah, they work great, man. I appreciate it. Now, gentlemen, let's get to work." We then watch as McCoy flips a switch inside the room and transforms into the Beast as we watch a training montage. We see Iceman use his cryokinetic powers to freeze the training bots that are fleeing their way towards him. Angel uses his power of flight to evade and dodge the bots, while Beast uses his incredible strength and nimbleness to destroy them. Cyclops removes his visor and begins using his optic beams to destroy the bots. As the montage ends, Xavier claps. "Good job, Bobby and Warren. I can tell you have both improved dramatically. Hank, great use of your evasiveness. Very impressive." "What about me, Professor?" "Good effort, Scott, but I expect more from you." "I mean it. Good effort, but it must be perfect." Scott looks to Beast. "Come on, man. I keep trying my best, but he never gives me the credit." "Oh, don't worry. You know the professor. He pushes us to be our best. So no need to take it personally." Cyclops moans as Xavier begins to wheel away as he says to the group, "Come with me outside, gentlemen. We have new recruits arriving." We cut outside the X-Mansion as we watch a limousine pull up to the gate. As the group watches, Io of the Dora Milaje, played by Florence Kasumba, gets out of the passenger seat of the limousine and goes to open up the back door. As she does, we watch as Ororo Monroe, played by Zoe Kravitz, steps out of the limousine. Warren looks to Bobby and says, "Who the heck randomly gets driven around in a limousine? Maybe she is some kind of movie star or something like that. That would be cool." When you are dating the king of a prosperous nation, you are given perks of riding in a limousine, among other things. Watch as Xavier wheels to the car and says, "Miss Monroe, I'm so glad we were able to make our schedules work out for you to come and work with us for a bit." Yeah, T'Challa wasn't thrilled, but here I am. Io, thank you for escorting me. I can take it from here. Io nods and returns to the vehicle as Xavier motions to the group and says, "Go meet your new teammates." We watch as Monroe walks over to the group as Hank smiles. "Great to see you again, Storm." Monroe chuckles. "Yeah, the name has really grown on me. It's great to see you as well. My name's Scott Summers. This is Bobby and Warren. It's an honor to have you on board the team." Yeah, we'll see how this works out. Big groups like this never really go well. Too many egos and all that stuff. Scott looks confused as we watch a taxi drive up to the gate. As the group looks on, we see a girl with ginger hair exit the vehicle. Xavier smiles. "Miss Gray, it's a pleasure to finally see you again after we connected through Cerebro." The girl is revealed to be Jean Grey, played by Abigail Cohen, who smiles and says, "It's an honor to be here, Professor. I'm really excited to meet everyone." We watch as Jean walks up to the group as Xavier wheels next to her. Xavier says to the group, "This is Miss Jean Grey. She's a telepath like myself, but also has other incredible powers. She's a psychic. But remarkably, she has many more latent powers that are hidden deep inside her that we aren't able to detect yet. She'll be a valuable member of the team, and I look forward to watching her growth." You forgot to mention that one of those powers is looking incredibly good in a dress. We watch as Jean walks over and grabs Warren by his hair. And if you think that I'm nothing more than just a pretty face, you're sadly mistaken. "Let's calm down now. We're going to be a team here, so we can't..." Suddenly, Xavier stops as Hank runs over to him. "Professor, is everything okay?" I'm getting a very bad feeling. Everyone, get to the Blackbird. Your uniforms are already on the ship. I will send you more information about the mission, but you must go now. Your first mission has finally arrived, X-Men." "Professor, we haven't even trained with Ororo or Jean. We don't know what to do." "No backtalk, Scott. You will learn on the job. Now, go!" We cut inside the Blackbird, the ship used by the X-Men to be transported from one mission to the next. We see McCoy flying while the remainder of the team changes into their uniforms. Ororo says, "You know, I really hate planes because of, well, some not so great history with them. But this one is really spacious. It's kind of nice." "Yeah, my dad helped pay for this one. After Professor Xavier found me using Cerebro, I told him that I got invited to a school for the gifted. He was more than willing to get me out of the house after my mutation, but little did he know that all this money that he's been sending is going towards this. Yeah, his dad is super rich. He's also kind of a jerk, but thanks for the enthusiasm, buddy. I'm sorry if we got off on the wrong foot. My name's Gene, as the professor said. I've actually been talking with him telepathically for a while now. He thought it would be best for me to stay at home until I had better control over some of my powers, but thanks to him, I learned how to levitate objects and use psionic forces." "Cool. So the professor helps you out, but can't tell me I've mastered a technique I've been working on for months." "I'm sure you're great. By the way, what are all of your stories?" We watch as Jean begins to read the group's mind as we see flashbacks of all of their backstories. We see Scott's parents dying in a plane crash. He was able to parachute out, but not before hitting his head on a rock. Something that, when his powers were awoken during the Golden Awakening, made controlling his optic beams incredibly difficult. We watch Angel receive his mutant powers, with his wings growing from his back, as his father, Warren Worthington II, played by Michael Pena, watches on in horror. We watch as Bobby was contacted by Professor Xavier using Cerebro and felt the need to run away from home since he felt that his parents wouldn't love him after his mutation. We also see Ororo's origin from United Forever, with the plane crashing into her childhood home and killing her parents. As we return to the Blackbird, Scott looks at Jean and asks, "Did you just read my mind?" "Yeah. Is there something wrong about it?" "Yeah, Professor Xavier has a rule against reading other people's minds. It is an extreme breach of privacy, so moving forward, I'd steer clear of it. Wait, guys, we have an incoming transmission from the professor." We watch as screens lower around the cabin as Professor Xavier appears on screen. "My X-Men. I picked up a disturbance earlier today. It was my old friend, Eric Lenscher. He is in Washington, D.C. protesting the recent announcement from President Ross. From what I can tell, he is there with his 2 children, Pietro and Wanda, and potentially other mutants. He is not currently acting violently, but be warned, if he is pushed too far, he will attack. His powers of magnetism is incredibly dangerous, so proceed with caution. Scott, you're in charge. My X-Men. Remember, you represent the best of mutant kind. Make sure this does not get out of control." We cut in front of the gates guarding the White House as we see Eric Lenscher, played by Jason Isaacs, standing alongside Pietro Maximoff, played by Evan Peters, and Wanda Maximoff, played by Elizabeth Olsen, as we see a crowd surrounding them as Eric is shouting, "The actions taken by the Ross and Rhodes administration today is simply an affront to the very ideals that you people hold so dear. Freedom of all people regardless of their identity. Yet, your president preaches hate to those he does not understand. I am a mutant. My children are mutants. But more importantly, my grandparents were killed in a Nazi concentration camp during World War II, and my mother was a victim of an anti-Semitic hate crime when we came to the United States. You people hate what you don't understand. This is the key issue with humanity, and that is why mutants need to take control. Because if we don't, we will be wiped out like my ancestors." We watch as a Blackbird hovers as the X-Men exit the ship. We also watch as suddenly droids begin to fly from the White House, as well as Vice President James Rhodes, aka War Machine, played by Don Cheadle, who flies in front of Magneto in his War Machine armor and says, "I hear what you're saying about the administration, but this has to stop. I can sense you're getting hostile." "Ah, Mr. Vice President, coming to squash my First Amendment rights, are you? They let you leave the White House without Secret Service these days?" "I got all the Secret Service I need with my armor. Now stand down." Watch as the X-Men slowly walk up to the scene as we see Eric use his powers of magnetism to disable Rhodes' War Machine armor. As Scott sees this, he screams, "We have to protect the Vice President. X-Men, move out!" We then watch as the X-Men charge into battle. We see Cyclops and Beast attempt to fight Eric, who screams at them that there is no way they can stop the mighty master of magnetism, Magneto. Pietro laughs and gives his dad a thumbs up for going with Magneto as his name, as we see Angel and Storm fighting with Pietro as Jean and Wanda face off. We see Iceman walking around when he walks up to someone who he believes is Jean. He says, "Hey, what happened? Did you manage to take care of that Wanda chick?" Suddenly, Jean turns around and begins attacking Iceman. After a bit of fighting, Jean is revealed to not actually be the real Jean, but instead Raven Darkholme, aka Mystique, played by Ana de Armas. As the fighting continues, we suddenly watch as a U.S. Army begins to arrive on the scene in an attempt to break up the fighting. Back at the X-Mansion, Xavier watches a live broadcast of events. As he sighs, he wheels to Cerebro and puts on the helmet and contacts Scott. He yells, "Scott, get the team out of there. This is turning into a bigger mess than it started. We need to regroup at home." "Professor, I can handle this. We just need to—" "Now, Scott, I will not ask again." Scott screams in anger as he yells to the group, "Retreat! We need to get out of here." We watch as both the X-Men and Magneto and his group of mutants begin to run away from the scene. Watch as the X-Men manage to return to the Blackbird as we watch Professor Xavier yell at the team for their lack of cohesion and singling out Scott for his failures as the team's leader. We cut to Magneto, Pietro, Wanda, and Mystique, who ran into an alley. Magneto looks at the group and asks, "Is everyone okay? I can't believe that old fool Charles sent his little team after us." "Yeah, Dad, we're fine, but you might want to look behind you. Magneto turns around and sees a tall figure standing behind him in a trench coat. Magneto jumps back. Who are you? What are you doing here? The unknown figure laughs. I'm a mutant like you, who wants to make the world a better place. So come with me. I have a place where I'd like to talk with you all. We cut to a seemingly abandoned building right outside of Washington, D.C. We see the group walk inside as Pietro comments, Wow, this place seems kind of creepy, dude. What is this? The figure stops. This was the last location of the Essex Clinic. It closed down. My name is Nathaniel Essex. Or well, it was. But now, you can refer to me by what Professor Xavier called me. Mr. Sinister. Watch as a figure pulls down his hood and is revealed to be Mr. Sinister, played by Henry Cavill, as Pietro pipes up, Ooh, so kind of like that guy from New York. Wait, what? His name was Mr. Fear, your name is Mr. Sinister, so like, you guys got this dark, creepy vibe going on in your names, right? I have lived for thousands of years. We are completely unrelated. Yeah, but Pietro, just zip it, okay? Thank you, Wanda. Now, why don't you tell me, what kind of mutant are you? What are you doing here? Sinister explains that before his transformation, he was formerly known as Dr. Nathaniel Essex, a geneticist who was obsessed with Darwin's theory of evolution. He eventually met a fellow scientist by the name of Herbert Wyndham, who performed tests on him and unlocked his latent mutant powers. These powers gave him the ability of superhuman strength, durability, telekinesis, and most importantly, a slowed aging process, which has allowed him to live for all of these years. After the scientific community rejected Wyndham's work, Essex began running two separate businesses, the Essex Clinic, in which he performed genetic experimentations on children in an attempt to awaken their dormant mutant gene, but he also experimented with cloning, specifically on himself. He explains that during this time, he cloned himself multiple times over, with each clone being weaker than him, but still formidable in their own right. It was also during this time when he met a young Charles Xavier, who came through the Essex Clinic. So, what happened? Well, Charles and I did not see eye to eye on mutant kind. I was obsessed with his power. Yes, I have telekinetic powers of my own, but Charles, his were on a different level than I. At least from the tests I ran, he would be of a different breed. I tried my best, but I could never have his powers unlocked. That was until his father died, and his powers manifested. But when they did, he placed a barrier between myself and him. A telekinetic barrier, so I could no longer find him. So, what are you doing now? I know you know where Charles is, and if we are going to protect mutant kind from those lunatics in the White House, unfortunately we are going to need him for help. Eric, I'm asking you, as someone who I can tell cares about the future of mutant kind, please help me find Charles. In exchange, I also have a gift. We watch as Sinister walks over to a table and picks up a helmet. This helmet is something I've been working on for a while now. It allows the person wearing it to prevent telepaths from reading their mind or communicating with them. I will give this to you, so you never have to worry about your old pal Xavier reading your mind again. But in exchange, all I require is that you and I pay him a small visit. We cut to the X-Mansion as we see Scott sitting inside his room. He screams in anger following the events of the day. We watch as suddenly Jean walks into the room and looks at Scott. Is everything okay? Leave me alone. I don't want to talk to anyone right now. Please, Scott. I can tell you're a good person. You have a good heart. I can sense that kind of stuff. He watches Jean sits next to Scott as Scott scoffs. Well, you probably already know what's wrong then. You can read my thoughts after all. Perhaps I do. But I always know it makes things better if you actually say how you feel. Scott explains to Jean how it feels like regardless of how hard he tries or how much he improves, Professor Xavier refuses to give him credit for how much he has improved in controlling his optic beams. Jean places her hand on his leg. Scott, I've seen Professor Xavier's thoughts. He loves you. He believes in you. But he's been through a lot as well. As Scott attempts to respond, we hear a boom outside of Scott's room as Scott and Jean run to the hallway. We then see Mr. Sinister and Magneto standing in the hallway. We watch as the other mutants of the X-Men attempt to charge at Sinister, but he manages to stop Iceman, Angel, Storm, Beast, and Scott all in their tracks, knocking them down and getting them out of the way. We watch as Professor Xavier wheels into the hallway and screams, "What is the commotion?" Wait. Essex? Did you miss me, Charles? Watch as Xavier attempts to use his telekinetic powers to prevent Sinister from going towards him, but Sinister is able to overpower him, pushes him out of his chair, and begins beating him senselessly. Did you miss this, Charles? You stood up to me, prevented me from unlocking your full potential. My full potential. Stop it, screams Jean as we watch her hit Sinister with a powerful psionic blast, which sends him flying. As Sinister stands up, he chuckles. My. I've been mistaken this entire time. The key to mutant kind prospering is not you, Charles. It is this one. That blast. I can detect a powerful, untapped energy inside of you. Charles, you're useless to me now. I need her. We then watch as Sinister walks to Jean. She attempts to fight back, but Sinister is aware of her moves and knocks her out, grabbing her lifeless body and looking to Charles. Mutant kind will become known as a superior species in just a few hours. Good try with your little team here, but you've lost, and I've won. Charles attempts to sit up, but unable to do so, he screams out, Eric, please, don't let him do this. I'm sorry, Charles. If we don't act now, mutant kind will be targeted and suffer like my ancestors did. I'm not going to let my children suffer that same cruel fate. We watch as Sinister and Magneto walk away carrying Jean as the X-Men lie on the ground, defeated. We cut back to just outside of Washington, D.C. as we see Magneto and Sinister enter into a newly constructed building next to the former Essex Clinic. Magneto turns to Sinister. When did this get constructed? We were only gone a few hours. Some of my clones did it while we were gone. They can be quite fickle at times, but a job as simple as this one was a mere sweat off of their brow. As the group walks inside, we see Pietro, Wanda, and Raven sitting inside the building as Sinister announces, My friends, we have accomplished our mission. We are but 50% of the way to achieving Mutant's ultimate goal. Hold on. 50%? What are you talking about? Eric, it's quite sad. I thought you were a smart one, but you fell right into my trap. What are you talking about? I'm not only trying to make mutant kind prosperous, but I'm also trying to make the perfect mutant. Me. You see, I lack the telekinetic power needed to fully conquer humanity on my own. But with Charles' help, I thought I would be put over the edge. However, this Jean girl, she possesses a power yet unknown. A power that might dwarf Charles. But after I got her, I thought to myself, why stop there? Your daughter. She has been given the powers of a witch. Yes, these powers can be learned, but your daughter. Her latent power, she understands it at a level I've never quite seen before. It's mind-boggling. It's as if she hasn't even tapped into half of what she could do yet. We watch as Sinister steps up to Wanda and punches her so hard she passes out. Pietro and Raven attempt to leap at Sinister, but he punches both of them away before they could realize what's going on. Magneto screams, Hands off of my daughter. We watch as Magneto attempts to use his powers of magnetism, but nothing happens. What's going on? Quite an easy explanation. I had my clones construct this building completely out of wood. Again, Eric, I thought you would be smarter. Now, I'll be taking the powers from Jean and Wanda and transferring them into my consciousness. Not only will I be the strongest mutant, but I will be the strongest being in the universe, and humanity will not stand a chance. I'll be free to use anyone, anything, to perform experiments, and just wait until I make more clones who possess my exact power. Oh, it will be beautiful. If you hurt my daughter, I swear you will not live to see your reality come true. Unfortunately, the children will die. A small but necessary price to pay for glory. Now, you old fool, I have no more use for you. You watch as Sinister walks up to Magneto, punching him unconscious after Magneto puts up a bit of a fight. As he does this, Sinister places him in a makeshift wooden prison cell as he goes to pick up Wanda's unconscious body and return to the abandoned Essex Clinic building. We cut inside the X-Mansion as we see Charles lying in his bed. As he quickly regains consciousness, we see Scott sitting in a chair next to the bed. Xavier looks up. Scott, what happened? You happened, Professor. Some man broke in and stole Jean. Apparently he was someone you knew about. Yet you never told us anything about this man, who he is, or that he might be out there. I'm sorry, Scott. It's a painful topic for me to discuss. Why? What did he do to you that was so bad that it prevented you from telling us? I don't have the words to explain it, so I'll just show you. Xavier closes his eyes and shows Scott memories from his past. We see Essex torturing a young Charles in an attempt to unlock his mutant powers. The varied methods of torture included snapping ligaments in Xavier's legs, which permanently caused him to lose the ability to walk. As we cut back into the room, Xavier looks to Scott and says, I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier. It is something I tried my best to suppress. Great. So there's a maniac mutant out there who tortured you, and now is going to attempt to take over the world likely. Great. We're finished. No, Scott. Not as long as they have you. Screw you, Professor. All you do is belittle me and tell me I'm not good enough. How I need to work harder. You have a lot of nerve saying that right now. It's because I wanted you to be better, Scott. Better than I ever could. What? I'm not a great leader, Scott. I'm a teacher, an educator, a mentor. But you have skills. You have a natural leadership ability. You can lead a group of mutants to greatness. Something, in a way, that I never could to your level. So I hope to do it through you. I push you because it's what everyone needs. Bobby needs someone to teach him how to become a young man. War needs someone to make him feel comfortable opening up. Hank needs someone who won't ignore his scientific quips. And Jean and Storm needed someone who can welcome them to the team. And you did all that, Scott. And you are doing it right now. But your potential, it's more than I've ever seen from anyone. Yes, the world faces a new challenge. But as long as it has you and the X-Men, it at least stands a chance. Scott leans over and hugs Professor Xavier as suddenly Scott hears a voice. The voice is Jean. She communicates with Scott telepathically and shares her location with him. She tells him that the time is of the essence, as Mr. Sinister will kill both her and Wanda in order to gain their powers. Scott shoots up. Professor, I just heard from Jean. She gave me her location. We need to save her. Scott, I'm not physically capable or really mentally capable of helping you all out this time around. This one is up to you. Now, go. Be the leader the X-Men need you to be. Scott runs out of the room and hits a button which activates an intercom inside the mansion. Scott says, X-Men, suit up. Get to the Blackbird in 5 minutes. We have a new mission. Cut inside the Blackbird minutes later as we see Hank piloting. He turns around and says, Scott, are you sure these are the right coordinates? Yes, I'm positive. Jean sent them to me telepathically. No offense, Scott, but how are we going to stop this guy? He threw us around like a bunch of rag dolls last time we faced him. Last time we didn't have a plan. Now, we do. Bobby, you're going to create an ice path for us to get from the Blackbird to the building. Angel and Ororo, you are 2 extremely powerful fighters. You guys are going to make sure that if anyone comes to give us trouble, they are stopped. Hank, you're going to use the Blackbird to blast a hole through the building for me to enter. Once completed, join the others in holding off any enemies we might encounter. I'll head in, rescue Jean and anyone else inside that building, and be out before Sinister knew what hit him. Got it? The team turns to Scott and nods as Scott smiles. Well then, X-Men, move out! We cut inside the former Essex clinic as we see Jean and Wanda attached to a contraption that will be used to drain them of their powers. When suddenly we hear a beeping noise as Sinister is alerted to the Blackbird flying overhead. He screams and presses a button that unleashes his clones. He yells at them, "Kill anyone who gets in our way! No survivors!" We watch as Iceman uses his powers to create a slide of sorts for Cyclops, Angel, and Storm to safely exit the Blackbird. As they safely exit, we watch as Beast shoots a hole inside the building and screams, "All clear, Captain!" Cyclops nods and yells, "All right, move out, team!" We then watch as the Sinister clones begin swarming out of the building as Iceman, Angel, Storm, and Beast fight off the clones, who are significantly weaker than Mr. Sinister. We watch as Cyclops manages to sneak inside the building and eventually finds the room where Jean and Wanda are being held. As he walks in, Sinister begins to clap. "You know, boy, Xavier is not a perfect man. He will lead you astray, and there will be nothing left for you to do." Xavier is not a perfect man. You're right about that. But neither are you. I know you think conquering the world will show how powerful mutants really are, but it's not the right way. Using our powers to help humanity, that's how we show them who we really are. You pathetic idiot. I can tell Xavier has filled your head with his nonsense. It's not about conquering the world. It's about perfecting it. By filling it with me, the only perfect being that there can be. Cyclops chuckles. Well, as long as I'm around, that's not going to happen. We then watch as Cyclops and Sinister begin fighting. Sinister is easily able to overpower Cyclops, but Cyclops refuses to give up, using all his energy to focus his optic beams on Sinister. Back outside, we watch the fight with the Sinister clones as it slowly spills into the wooden building housing Magneto and the other mutants. As the X-Men continue to fight, we watch as Pietro and Mystique eventually join in the fight against the Sinister clones. Pietro runs up to Bobby and says, "Hey, thanks for helping us out, little dude. I appreciate you guys helping to save my sister. So, what's your name?" "I'm Iceman. And yours?" "Oh, made up names. Gotcha. I was thinking Quicksilver. You know, my hair's kinda silvery looking, and that's kinda my power, is I'm a bit quick." "Dude, that's awesome! Nice fighting alongside ya, Quicksilver." As the two return to battle, we watch Magneto sitting in his cell as Beast suddenly comes over and destroys the wood, preventing Magneto from escaping. Magneto stands up. "Why? Why did you do that?" "Simple. Our leader in the other room could use your help. Go, save your daughter, and end this now." We quickly cut to the White House as President Ross is alerted to some skirmish going on just outside of Washington. Ross commands the U.S. Army to head out as we see tanks and news reporters begin heading towards the area where the X-Men are fighting. We cut back to Cyclops versus Sinister. Cyclops has taken a massive beating and is running out of energy as Sinister is gaining the upper hand as he punches Cyclops to the ground and screams, "You are weak and pathetic. You're just a little boy playing a man's game. You're just like Charles. In over your head." As Sinister winds up to deliver the final blow, we suddenly watch as the metal contraptions around the room begin to bend and break as Magneto uses his powers to encase Sinister in the metallic objects, who screams as Magneto looks to Cyclops, "Finish it!" As Cyclops prepares to unleash his energy on Sinister, Jean speaks to him telepathically and says, "Let it go. Unleash it all." Cyclops screams and hits Sinister with an optic beam so powerful the entire screen turns white. As the dust settles, nothing remains of Sinister or the metal. Cyclops gets Jean as Magneto gets Wanda as they walk outside. We also watch the group of X-Men finish fighting the Sinister clones who have all been defeated. As the group walks outside, Magneto thanks Cyclops for his help as he, Wanda, Quicksilver, and Raven quickly head away as the X-Men join Cyclops and Jean outside. We watch as tanks and television reporters pull up to the scene. A reporter runs up to Scott and asks what he is doing here. Back at the X-Mansion, we see Xavier lying in bed watching the report as Cyclops takes the microphone. Yesterday, President Ross announced a new piece of legislation called the Mutant Registration Act. Well, I'm a mutant, but more importantly, I'm a human. We all are. Today, an evil mutant attempted to use our abilities to conquer humanity in response to this piece of legislation, but we stopped him. Not because we're mutants and we wanted to set a better example, but because we're humans. We couldn't let anything happen to our brothers and sisters. And that's why we encourage everyone who has the power that is voting on the Mutant Registration Act to vote no. Not because of what it might do to mutants, but because of what it might do to your fellow human beings. The reporter smiles. Nicely said, but who are you? My name is Scott Summers, and this is my team, the X-Men. We're a team of mutants with the goal of helping humanity. And I have one message out there for any evil mutant, or evil human, or anyone who wants to cause harm. You can try, but be warned, the X-Men will step in, and if we do, we will defeat you. The screen fades to white as we cut to a month later as we see the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters is bustling with a ton of new young mutants who joined in response to Scott's speech to the press. We cut inside Professor Xavier's office as we see Scott sitting with him. Xavier smiles. Well, Scott, it appears the Mutant Registration Act got voted down in Congress. No doubt in part thanks to your advocacy. Well, it's the least I could do. Happy to help mutants and humanity at the same time. As Xavier smiles, Jean walks in and says, Scott, it appears we have an incident that needs to be taken care of. Scott walks into the hallway and hits the intercom button and says, Mission time, X-Men, move out, as the movie ends. We have 2 post-credit scenes. In the first post-credit scene, we cut to deep space as we hear a mysterious booming voice. My heralds, I require your assistance once again. We slowly watch as figures begin appearing on screen as the voice names them. Terrax, the Tamer, voiced by Antonio Banderas. Pyrrhus Krill, my Fire Lord, played by Mads Mikkelsen. Gabriel Lan, my Air Walker, played by Milo Ventimiglia. Norin Rad, my Silver Surfer, played by Pedro Pascal. Because of the snap of the Mad Titan, no planet has contained the requisite amount of cosmic energy for me to consume. My hunger grows as mighty as the imbalance that faces me. My heralds, find me a planet rife with cosmic energy. My feast begins soon. As all of the heralds in unison say, Yes, mighty Galactus, sir. The camera pans up, revealing Galactus, played by Liam Neeson. In the second post-credit scene, we cut inside a mysterious building as we see President Ross on a computer screen. He says, Listen to me, Freeman. Get this Weapon X program figured out as soon as possible. We need to hurry this up. As the screen turns off, the camera pans and reveals Francis Freeman, played by Ed Skrein, who chuckles. Dang, that Thunderhead is getting real antsy. Let's see. Our first test subject, some dude by the name of James Howlett. Interesting. Well, time to get Weapon X up and running. And that is Rebooted MCU Phase 4. We finally have the X-Men, and yes, Galactus the Planet Eater is the big bad of the Galaxy and Mutant saga. We'll deal with him more in Phase 5, but I want to go ahead and let you all know I will be taking a little bit of a break before we start Phase 5. You will have The Flash 2 coming out as well, so just be on the lookout for that. But the first project of Phase 5 will be Captain Marvel's Secret Invasion. Again, just be on the lookout for that. There will be some announcements coming soon, as well as some of the side projects from Pokken, which I will link the video to that in the description below as well. I encourage you all to go check that out and get involved if you are interested. Now, before I start this next part of the video, which is where I will be reading out every member of our Discord server and thanking them for all of their contributions, I want to go ahead and encourage you all to like, comment, subscribe. You can watch the Defenders right now by clicking the link as I read off the members of the Discord. And make sure to subscribe and like this video and share it with a friend. Now, I want to start off by thanking and naming everyone in the Discord. My mods, Adrian Manray, British Commander, Pokken, Lightboy, and Pre-Zach. And everyone else in the Discord. Cinema Hero, Afflix, Brick, Schmuck, The Flame Artist, Vegito What Ifs, DRL, Avargus, Ben Rush, Braden Miller, Bruh My Guy, Deadshaw6, Draxi, Elvado Samuel, who I want to give a special shout out for because he helped come up with the Michael Pena casting for Warren Worthington II, Fallen Angel, Film Fan Ouch, Geek Dude, Gibster, Howd Aspect, James Skywalker, Jeremiah Smith, John145, Marvel Maniac, Mr. CCS, Phoenix Hercules, Reynard, Red Top 1995, Saint Jumbo, Spider Knight 2099, Spider-Bat 99, Some Kid, and True Team Network. Remember, you can join the Discord below. Thank you all for watching the video, and until next time, I hope you all take care, and I'll see you again real soon.